Alrighty, 5.8 is going to be coming soon, and of course, most important thing within a single patch is regarding the new character and the potential rerun, which is why in today's video we're going to be having a bit of videos discussing about that. But we already know that Ineffa is going to be the new character in 5.8. Now the rerun character aren't confirmed, however, it is expected to be Chasca, Mualani, and Citlali. Now a bit of an early video, however, if this lineup does change upon the live stream in a couple of days, I'm just going to make a bit of an update video then.
Ineffa and patch 5.8 is going to be coming soon, and I know that there are characters that you are deciding to pull. So if you're planning to swipe for pulling, then don't forget to check out Loot Bar. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before, since you can always save almost a 25% on all of your top-ups. With over 100,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point. And by the way, this also applies to PS5 and Xbox user who can place orders through Loot Bar. You can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. Here you can see my order receipts of all of my top-ups that I have done. And for those who are going for the highest package when topping up, there's also a limited discount options available once every version. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description, as it can be a great way for you to save your money, especially if you are topping up a large amount.
Now first off, talking about Ineffa, I won't actually be going too in depth into her skills and kit in this video, as I've already made another video. So if you haven't already and want to have a little bit more info on Ineffa, do check that video as well. Now for me personally, from her potentials and skill and kit, I actually kind of like Ineffa, because me as a player, I usually like character that opens up more team comps and actually not much of a DPS character. Generally, I don't like DPS character being introduced, especially in Genshin Impact, where different team comps diversity is something that is slightly better, especially when we come into the end game. And especially with Ineffa being the character that will potentially take electro charge reaction to the next level with her lunar charge, similar to how the Lu is doing with the Bloom before. The electro charge being a reaction that was kind of forgotten very much up until this point, unless you are somebody who really likes using electro charge, as it was the elemental reaction that is not widely used for it not being that good. So therefore, with Ineffa on the team, yeah, I'm going to be able to create electro charge team basically once again, which is something that I haven't been focusing for a very long time. Now obviously there aren't too many characters that may have electro charge team being the best of the best team in their team arsenal, because most of the characters nowadays already have their best team. But it does again open up more team cons for us to play around with and actually adapt to different kind of situation, because sometimes you're up against bosses, enemies that may be resisting the other elemental reaction that you're trying to do, and then whenever you want to focus on having Hydro Electro character on a team, then you can actually do that. So obviously Lunar Charge is not the only thing that Ineffa have access to, because other than that, she has access to a shield and very decent off-field sub DPS damage. So again, it's kind of like a Fischl and a Zhongli who had a baby. Now again, all the numbers aren't finalized because it's still in pre-release data, though most likely her shield isn't going to be as good as Zhongli, but as long as you have a shield on the team, generally speaking, it's already going to be the better case, because many of the DPS characters, like Novelet, Laran for example, they actually sustain themselves, or even Alikino, though Alikino probably don't work in Ineffa team that much. These characters can sustain themselves, so we don't always have active healer on those kind of teams, where if Ineffa is a character that provides a decent shield, those characters are going to be benefiting off a lot of that. And other than that, sub DPS damage that Ineffa is able to do alongside with her burst actually also have very nice nuke. She is going to be a potential character that has a lot of good things. Though yes, I know that again, many of the downside that she has regarding, many of you wouldn't really like to use electro charge, and other than that, you technically already have a Fischl, especially at the C6. While yes, she is very much similar to how Fischl is doing, then yeah, I know that many of you may not be wanting to invest more into Ineffa, which again we'll still have to wait more information upon her official release for her to be officially test out and make the very final decision then. Which leads us to the next character where she finally going to be having her rerun, which is of course Citlali. I'm pretty sure many of you have been waiting for Citlali. She's obviously a very cute character. Would love to have her on our account, but again, being cute is not the only thing that she has, because she is obviously one of the best support out there that we have in the game, especially when it comes to melt, albeit of a team with mixed vaporize and melt kind of reaction. First off, she provides you a shield with decent uptime. She also have a bit of sub DPS damage, and if you really want to, her nuke burst attack actually can deal really nice number. But of course, that is not the main thing about Citlali, because her Hydro and Pyro resistant shred is obviously really good. Not to mention she can have access to Cinder City buff, giving a 40% damage bonus. Making full use of it is definitely really nice. Her off-field application from her E skill is definitely there. She has access to really nice cryo application, therefore enabling melt or freeze, however you want to be using your team. Now generally with Citlali there aren't too many downsides, especially when you are using her in the desired team. Now obviously the downside is that, well, since she is a cryo character, she doesn't actively support cryo teams apart from the Cinder City set, which is sometimes that you can consider. So generally it's not too much of a downside because she can still be on those kind of teams. And other than that, sometimes her specific melt team may require you to have more dedicated rotations, so you may have to practice a bit whenever you are using her melt team comps here and there. But overall, I don't think Citlali actually has too much of a downside. Generally, she is really good of a supportive character that we haven't got access to in a decently long time. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be quite a while before we actually see any other really good supportive character that comes along in Genshin Impact as well. Up next, we have Chasca, a very unique DPS character. Of course, some may like her, some may not like her. For me personally, I like Chasca. First off, is because even though she's a DPS character with a bit of a unique team combination, she still is able to dish up pretty decent damage. So it's not like her damage is bad or anything. It's just that you have to play around with her team building quite a bit, because it's kind of like a mixture of different kind of elements when it comes to Chasca teams. Now rarely do we have a character that utilizes different elemental reaction within a team like this, and I can see why many of us may not like her. However, it does have its upside, is that she can tackle content that have access to enemies with higher specific elemental resistance, because she is using many different type of elements within her team comps. You can actually be really flexible whenever you build a Chasca team against specific type of element bosses. The other really nice thing about Chasca is that she's one of the best overworld exploration character. It's more or less only going to be in Natlan specifically, where she can make use of her flying ability a lot, though in the other region you can still able to make use a bit of it. Even though it's not as long, it does help you to climb up mountains or rocks, or cross a bit of a river here and there with a decent amount of time. So while it's not really that bad, however, some of her downsides, again, it is pretty noticeable, is that first of all, generally before her C2, she's more or less going to be a single target character. Though while it's not to say that before her C2 she can't do any AoE damage, because she can. Other than that, with her using so many different elemental reaction within the team, it's very hard to optimize her team, because you're actually doing a mix of different elemental reaction together, and you can't really always control which elemental reaction is going to be triggering before and when is it going to be after, which I think is one of the highest downside of Chasca that many of us don't really like. And sometimes her charge attacking kind of gameplay is a little bit clunky for some of us, and I also find that sometimes as well. Though again, she is still a ranged character, so she doesn't really have to deal with enemies that's too far away from her. And generally, whenever you're already used to her charge attack, it's actually a very easy kind of gameplay. You just hold it down and then she does damage and then she goes off field. That's pretty much it. And then other than that, our lovely Mualani is going to be back. Now again, Mualani is another DPS character, though Mualani does have her kind of fun kind of gameplay for a DPS character, because even though she's in kind of like a direct competition with Neuvillette, her gameplay is rather different from Neuvillette. So some of you might find that Neuvillette is a little bit too boring to play, may find Mualani a little bit more fun to play around with, because she's serving on her little cute shark. Doing shark bite attack is rather fun. However, character, some of us don't actually really like it. For me, for example, it's a little bit hard to make full use of a shark bite sometimes, depending on how spread out your enemies sometimes are, because again, it is a limited time before her night soul actually runs out. So again, it varies depending on the person. But one thing you can't deny is that Mualani does absolutely nice number. She's still one of the best DPS character out there that we have access to. Her team building is rather simple, and she can definitely make use of some of the best supportive character out there in the game, making her team really good to play. Not to mention, her constellation is some of the better ones out there in the entire games. Oh my god, if you do invest into her, she's going to be chomping your enemies like butter. So yeah, for those of you who are enthusiasts about Mualani, investing more into her is definitely going to be the right choice. For again, she is also a Hydro character, and Hydro characters are at this current point have access to some of the best team available, making her team building rather easy. Other than that, again, if you are in Natlin, yeah, her surfing shark, making it really easy for you to travel around. But yeah, it is only limited to Natlin mostly, so we'll just have to deal with that. Now that being said, one of the main downside of Mualani is even though she has access to really nice team comp, her team is pretty much stuck into a vaporized kind of teams. And not being able to trigger vaporized damage is going to tank her DPS quite a lot. Therefore, vaporized team is technically the only team that you want her in. But then again, it is a very good team, so I'm pretty sure many of you wouldn't really mind. So those are the overall information regarding the character that may be having their rerun, as well as Ineffa. Hopefully that has given you guys a bit of a refresher. Now regarding the pooling decision within this patch, if this character lineup is going to be, generally speaking, I say that unless you really need to have Citlali, then I think it's going to be okay to wait for more information regarding 6.0 character, because most likely Not Cry is coming right after. There may be potentially really nice character coming right after that. I don't know which exactly banner phase is Citlali going to be, though she might not actually be on the first phase, as the first phase might be safe for Ineffa and Chasca, for example, because Chasca can potentially be used in more or less an electro charge kind of team. So hopefully they are going to do that, and Citlali will be on the second phase, therefore giving you guys more time. But obviously, if you are still going to be deciding to pull, then yeah, generally Citlali is still always going to be on the top, as you know, whatever she does it really well. After that, it's definitely going to be Ineffa mostly. Now for me personally, since I already have Citlali, I'm going to be prioritizing Ineffa over Citlali, as while having a new character to play around with is generally still always more fun. And then after that is Mualani and Chasca. Obviously those two are again DPS character, more or less going to be a preference kind of things depending on whether or not you like them as a character. So yeah, that's generally going to be the pooling priority here. I think that's everything I have to say regarding some of the characters that may potentially be in patch 5.8. I hope that the video have been helpful to you. If you do have any questions, leave it down in the comment section. I or some other lovely Genshin player will get to you there. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to not miss out on my future Genshin videos. With that, I wish you a super day, and I'll catch you on my next video.